This is the podcast for H.J. Chapman Freelance Law Practice. On Saturday the 11th of May 2013, I was lucky enough to be invited to give a talk to 20 or so MBA students at the University of New York in Prague, together with Ballardini and Jana Vlkova. Ballardini has completed law school in the United Kingdom and currently works for Richcliffe Consultancy, a substantial property developer active in Central Europe and the United Kingdom. Jana Vlkova is an advocate qualified in the Czech Republic who works for renowned constitutional law firm Tom and Devati and Partners, and the details about me, Howard Chapman, are available on my website www.hjchapman.com. As regards this session, the group was highly energetic and engaged throughout the day's worth of presentations, where we sought to explain the basics of certain legal concepts and the ways that lawyers can be used to help their businesses grow. We have reproduced all of the talks as a series of short audio streams. In case you were not at the talk, we hope this is the next best thing, and in any case we hope this is useful to you. So on with the show.
So we've got through the negotiations, we've signed it, we're going through to try and close. There may be various things that need to happen, typically to satisfy a bank that it can lend. The bank, in an ideal world, will be satisfied very promptly, will lend you. You then have to go to your own investors and decide that they're going to put the money in so that you can afford to pay the purchase price. That's not so easy either, because they may be all over the world and the company has to route around the world. You'll need people to sign documents. So you'll need to make sure there are powers of attorney in place so that people can sign the documents where they need to sign them.
That's important, because if the document is not prepared well, then the deal doesn't go through, and you have to wait because the POA hasn't got the right wording. And it's happened to us. Like, for example, a general meeting wasn't called regularly because the POA wasn't right, so all the transactions didn't work out well.
Okay, so how can it go wrong? In my experience, one of the most miserable days that I had was sitting in a bank's office overnight waiting for money to arrive, and it never arrived. That's quite common. If you're transferring money from abroad, how long is it from BVI to Czech Republic? 4 days? Yeah. Something like that at the moment. Yeah. So that actually has a material effect on the transaction. You can improvise, you can say, well, the money hasn't arrived. We'll write a second contract, a so-called side letter to say, we'll pretend we've closed and we'll make these provisions for when the money arrives, but basically we'll close.
Those days.
Well, not really, but...
It happened to that the lawyer forgot, in one transaction, the lawyer forgot to send the money after, there's a deadline with banks. I think if it's 2 o'clock, after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the money is going to be sent, not received the day after. The lawyer, we had a closing on a specific day, just as Howard was explaining, and the lawyer just completely forgot about, not Howard, somebody else, forgot about making the payment, and the money arrived 2 days later. We had to post that with the notary. Because luckily enough, the notary could see the money was coming. They have a system, am I correct? You can see the money is coming, although it's not landed on the account. So he said, okay, fine, for this time, we'll make post-dated documents. And you can imagine how we were all nervous.
But that's when you see contracts written in handwriting, that's what's happened. Something's gone wrong, and the lawyer has had to just go, well, we either kill the deal because of this stupid mistake, it's normally stupid rather than deliberate, or we have to quickly write something which just acknowledges it and enables people to go forward. It's not perfect, but sometimes it's appropriate. You can also use a document escrow, which is like a money escrow. You find somebody to hold the documents until the right things happen at the right time. So you find your trusted third party. Me, for example, I've done a few document escrows for other people's transactions where I promise to release the documents in certain cases. You could just defer closing, or the alternative to deferral is to just go for it. What the hell? Pray, cross yourself, hope for the best. Maybe he'll pay. Each of those has a valid place. It just depends how you want to deal with the problem, or you kill the deal, of course, if it doesn't close on time. Post-closing, I will go through very, very briefly. You want to make sure that the assets of the company that you've bought are safe and that they can be operated in the way that you want them to be operated without interference by the person that just sold it to you, under your brand without infringing anyone else's brand, and using the employees that are there without having them taken by any other person. You may need to deal with formal filings, you may need to notify customers and other third parties about what you've done, and you might have protections about what happens if the customers don't like it, or you may have dealt with that in another way. Sometimes it's a condition. That's about it on that one. Last point is, lawyers like publicity a bit. They like to announce what they've done, and companies like to announce what they've done as well. But it's important to agree how the market will see the things that you've done, and it's usual to agree joint announcements. I mean, we've talked about NDAs, we've talked about not disclosing things. The deal itself is covered by the NDA. The deal you do is covered by the NDA, but you want to announce that. So if you announce the deal, do you effectively say the NDA means nothing? That could be construed as that. It's important to exclude the joint announcement from the NDA. So if you go around it, then you can make the publicity that you want in order to promote both businesses, in favour of both businesses. That is the end of the talk. As a brief wrap-up, the summary of where we've been through on this journey of the transaction is that you've gone through, as a seller, you've decided you want to sell something, or as a buyer that you want to buy something, you've engaged with the other party or multiple parties, you've decided how the auction would go through as a seller. As a buyer, you've made a big decision to participate. You've signed a non-disclosure agreement, you perhaps agreed to exclusivity or non-exclusivity, you may have paid a deposit. You've started to look at the information in the data room, you've had a valuer come along and produce a valuation to enable you to calculate an indicative price. You put an indicative bid in, the indicative bid's been accepted, you can proceed, you go through, do more due diligence, you produce a final price, you go through, you negotiate an agreement to try and get somewhere in the middle that both parties can accept. You've gone through, you've signed the agreement, you've opened discussions with the bank, you've got accepted for a loan with the bank, you've gone through, you've negotiated with the bank, you've finished the closing conditions for the bank, you've turned up on the day, you've got your money from your shareholders into the country, you've got your powers of attorney, you've got the right people in the right place at the right time, the money's turned up, you've signed the documents, you've closed the deal. It's a bit easier to do it with a lawyer. Thank you very much. Questions? No. Where? There.
So all that remains is for me to give a huge thanks to Aaron Johnson, course director of the MBA programme at the University of New York in Prague. To find out more about the MBA course, please go to www.unypunip.cz. Otherwise, many thanks for listening.